What is going on, you guys? Coaster here. I'm just going to do my State of the Raiders address. It's been a few weeks since the Super Bowl, a little bit of time. Really just needed to have time to think and process the whole situation, some of the coaching staff, and so on. But I think now that things are settled with Josh McDaniels and now Dave Ziegler and a few other staff guys, I think it's time to finally talk about this. So, State of the Raiders. Where is this team where they are after making the playoffs for the first time in 5 years? Still have some things and kinks to go through. So, first of all, just recapping the year. I mean, the defense was good. Look, I would say above average. They had Max Crosby put in a full season, which was nice. I thought Gus Bradley did a pretty good job given what he had. But then the problem is the offense, and that was the trade-off that John Gruden kind of made. He had Ngakoue, who was a nice signing, but then all these other guys on the offensive line that he got rid of from the year before, a lot of those were gone, and they paid the price. They couldn't run the ball. Pass protection was sketchy. You could say that hurt Derek Carr a lot. But then also, of course, we know what happened with John Gruden as such. You know, the whole emails thing I don't have to go over. Team was playing down to their level. It got kind of old. I was tired of that. So to know that they got him ousted because of the Washington football team, good for them. I was happy to just get rid of him completely somewhere. So that being said, he still has left his mark on this team because Alex Leatherwood has been a terrible draft pick. Some say he's the worst lineman for last season. He could have been average and maybe it would have helped, but you draft the worst lineman and you reach for a guy, you don't even trade down. Terrible. You better hope he pans out better or develops because that's not very encouraging. And then, of course, the Raiders had to go through a lot, not only with head coach, but of course, that wide receiver, who I'm not going to say his name, he murdered a woman driving intoxicated, which, very irresponsible, very sad story to say the least. So mentally, I think there was a lot to overcome. It was really hard to point the finger at Bisaccia, who really isn't meant to be a head coach. But they did win their last 4 games. They played close to their competition, and then they were able to win. So you just got to give credit where credit's due that this team didn't fold and lie down and suck. But there's just also flaws in this team that they weren't good enough to compete and be a contender, and that's what hurts. I mean, this was the 4th year of Gruden's roster, of his personnel, and at the most part, this roster is just mediocre. There's some really good pieces, but there's not enough star pieces to make a run and be great. I mean, I've just seen this movie before where you're like, you can play good for 3 quarters, you play good for 55 minutes sometimes, and then you just lay an egg at the end. And in the Bengals' case, instead of actually leading, you just kind of dug yourselves a hole, and then you tried to play catch-up, and you still weren't good enough to finish the game. It is what it is. I mean, they just weren't good enough. And that's how the Raiders and the offense, you could say it's the play calling, you could say it's Derek Carr, it's hard to point the fingers everywhere, the offensive line. Now, in terms of Derek Carr, I just don't think he's good enough. He's average. It's just a tease. Whenever he looks good one day, he's just going to lay an egg the next, or when you expect him to do better, he lays an egg. I mean, you look at the games against like Washington or the Giants, it's just, I've seen that story before where it gets flat and it gets boring, where it's frustrating, and I don't see it with him. So there goes the interviews, the coaches. Obviously, they just hired Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, and then they doubled down on trying to be the Patriots, which I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of this. Josh McDaniels on paper has a resume to be a head coach. I'm not questioning that. But the problem is that he's tied to the Patriots. I've already said before, the Patriots are a team you want to stay away from when it comes to hiring coaches, because when teams try to be the Patriots, it usually backfires. I mean, you look at the head coach track record, it's forgettable. There's some executives. You think about Scott Pioli in the past. I think there was Bob Quinn, who was on the Lions. They tried to hire. When it comes to GMs, some of the GMs have done okay if you bring up the Tampa Bay Bucks, but just remember, some of those guys did not come directly from Bill Belichick's staff, and they had influence elsewhere. They didn't come straight from the Patriots. So when it comes to just the track record of just coaches, coordinators that became head coaches, that's really bad. Romeo Crennel, Charlie Weiss. I mean, Nick Saban didn't work out in the NFL level, but he ended up all right at the college level, I'll say that much. But once again, Nick Saban was more of a Browns assistant, if I remember correctly. Obviously Eric Mangini, Jim Schwartz, Bill O'Brien, he was the executive. That was a very forgettable. And then Matt Patricia. And then even more recently, we can talk about Brian Flores, who's become an ego. I mean, he just got hired by the Steelers, but he's got an ego clash. There's some flaws with him that maybe he's a cancer, I don't know. And then the other recently fired Joe Judge. I mean, really bad track record when you hire a coach or someone associated with Bill Belichick. I'm going to have my doubts. I mean, I got to give McDaniels and his staff a chance, but you better hope that he learned from his mistakes in Denver, because I still remember that game, that time against the Broncos, and remember that he traded Jay Cutler because he tried to get for Matt Castle, and that caused a riff. He traded Brandon Marshall at one point. He also traded, I mean, he pretty much set the Broncos back a few years. He drafted Tim Tebow, if you remember that one. And then my favorite one is the one he drafted Alphonso Smith. He traded a first for like a second rounder in the moment because he thought Alphonso Smith would be a great corner, and that blew up in their face. If not, of course, 59-14. Do you remember that game? Anyone? Yeah, that was a fun game, 59-14. Josh McDaniels was the opposing head coach. Don't forget it. So yeah, there were times that he just did not have his team prepared. You hope he learned from 10 years ago and so on. But the only thing I expect with these Patriots guys taking over is that they're going to trade up and down the draft board, because that's a very Bill Belichick thing to do. Yeah, McDaniels as a play caller, I've heard a lot of ups and downs from him. I've heard a lot of skepticism, but fine. He's not bad. I don't think he's the best, but he's fine. You could say he's better than what the Raiders have already. So where do you go from here? Well, the defense, I think, has pieces. They don't have to mess with the roster there, but the offense, I could see them just blow it up. Most of the personnel is going to be gone, I think. Derek Carr, I don't know about him. They say they're talking about an extension. I'm not in favor of a long-term extension. It's got to be short-term. But the other thing, Josh McDaniels should not have any attachments to this roster, because he wants his own players, and so does Ziegler, I bet. So the only thing I know is head coach and GM will be on the same page no matter what, because they're already connected. And I expect if Josh McDaniels sees a quarterback he likes, he's going to try to trade up or go for him. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but I don't think they're going to stick with Derek Carr for 4 straight years the way John Gruden chose to stick to him. I still can't believe that. Usually head coaches don't care about the quarterbacks they inherit, yet John Gruden did. Once again, I don't think Derek Carr is going to take the Raiders over the top. He is a game manager. He is average. He's not really impressive for a full season. It's a tease. He looks good one day, bad the next. It gets boring. And that's all you kind of expect of him. He has to run the ball. He's got to have a good offensive line. He is better off when he's a game manager. So, yeah, the Patriots guys are taking over the Raiders, and I do not know what their plans and philosophy is, but I expect the offense to change completely. They're going to try to revamp and do some things. For me, it's not going to really be about wins and losses next year. They're going to have to rebuild somewhat. But it's going to be about how do they show up each week in and out. Are they going to play a 60-minute game, or are they just going to play this, let's have a lead for 40 minutes and then suck the next 20? Or, of course, we've seen where they're one play away and they can't put away an opponent. Like, the way that they beat the Chargers that last game, I was just angry watching that. You have, 4 plays to end a game and you give up a back-breaking play near the end. I'm tired of that. I am tired of games where they just play to the opponent's level, or you're so close to finishing and you can't do it. They have to be able to put up an opponent away when you have that lead, or take care of business against a bad opponent. I don't know. We'll see. And then, of course, by year 2, you need to see improvements. You got to see steps forward. But I'm expecting kind of a rebuild transition year on offense. The defense has the right to at least be competitive, but they have to blow it up. If McDaniels wants his guys, he's going to have to blow it up. That is just how things work in sports when you have a new front office and new regime. So, yeah, it could be worse. I don't think this team is good, but they're not bad. They're just in the middle. And then they buck the trend. I mean, the biggest trend right now is hiring a guy connected to Sean McVay or hiring a young guy. Sometimes I'm amazed that Josh McDaniels is only in his 40s, and then I remembered he was very young when hired by the Broncos. So, yeah, he's got quite a resume to say he's been in the league long enough. But do you trust him? Do you not? I don't know. It's just kind of a meh. I'm not really a fan of this, but it could be worse. Just I would have rather hired someone connected to Sean McVay or someone younger, someone with a more interesting coordinator resume than someone connected to Bill Belichick. Now, I also just wanted to briefly say rest in peace to John Madden. I know I didn't say much about him before, but like anything, they did a really nice tribute and I watched some of his documentaries and videos about the last years or so his football life. Great stuff. If anyone attended his memorial in Oakland, I mean, just let me know how it went. I thought that was cool that it happened in Oakland, to say the least. So, yes, rest in peace. He lived a very full life. I'm very thankful that at least I got to watch him call games. He has a legacy. It's great. It's amazing that it took so long to get into Canton. It's like they had to wait till he had a video game and had a broadcasting career. Because I know when it came to being a football coach, he did not have a long coaching career. He actually, about a few years removed from that Super Bowl win, he kind of retired and came out and said, "Quit while I'm ahead." And then I'm sure he lost his passion to coach and then broadcasting it. It's interesting when you watch his football life documentary that he wasn't sure about being a broadcaster. He was kind of on the fence, and then he was himself. It worked out great. Said, I'm happy that he and Pat Summerall, I got to see both of Pat Summerall and Madden call games before he went with Al Michaels. So, good memories, good times of my childhood. May he very well rest in peace. I just do not know what to think about this Raider squad. So, let me know what y'all think. I'm just kind of mad on Josh McDaniels. We'll see you guys later.